To save my father's company from the brink of bankruptcy, I was sent to the side of the country's wealthiest family. Though she was a girl born with a silver spoon and 3 years my junior, she was also wild and untamable. At first, I was just her playmate, keeping her company as we played video games, skipped class, and fooled around intimately in her private movie theater. When we grew up, I was her personal assistant by day and her private possession by night. In front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of her office, in the lavatory of her private jet, on the deck of her yacht, we left countless traces of our reckless affair until the day her first love returned to the country. That night, she was insatiable, clinging to me 10 times without letting go. "Ethan," she'd whisper, "I still can't forget Julian." In that moment, I understood it was time for me to step aside. "I understand. I'll pack my things and be gone in a bit. I'll delete my fingerprint from the lock, too." She let out a soft laugh, standing to embrace me with the same intimacy she always showed after we'd been together. "Don't worry," she said. "Only the playmate part of our relationship is over. You'll still be my assistant, and I'll protect your family for the rest of your lives." I fastened the last button on my shirt and turned to face her. "That won't be necessary. I've already decided to leave." Before I could finish, her phone rang. "Chloe, your first love is back. He's at Noir for his welcome back party. Are you coming?" It was her best friend's excited voice on the other end. Chloe's eyes lit up, and she immediately got up to leave. The moment the door shut, I expertly stripped the sheets and tossed them in the laundry, picked up the scattered clothes one by one to hang them, and only then began to pack my own things. I had lived here for 3 years, yet everything I was taking with me fit into a single small suitcase. As I was deleting my access from the fingerprint lock, my dad called. "Ethan," his voice trembled with excitement. "What did you do to convince Chloe this time?" "She just invested $1 billion into the company." I stood at the entrance of the mansion, my voice calm. "This is the last time. She won't be investing in you again." There was a second of silence on the other end, followed by my father's voice thick with suppressed rage. "What do you mean?" Then, as if he understood, he quickly added, "You've been by Chloe's side for years. She can't live without you. So what if her first love is back? Just keep being her assistant, and we'll keep reaping the benefits." I cut him off. "I forgot to tell you. I'm leaving. You used my mother to threaten me for 12 years. Now that she's gone, you have nothing left to hold over me. You'd better not come looking for me, or I can make you find a way to pay back every cent you've taken over the years." With that, I hung up and blocked my father's number and all his social media accounts. Back at my own apartment, my first day of freedom began with a trip to the office to file my resignation. The HR representative looked at me in shock. "Ethan, you're quitting. Does Miss Sterling know?" I smiled. "People quit their jobs all the time, don't they? But Miss Sterling can't function without you." "No one is indispensable," I said, pushing the form across the desk. "Just send it through for her approval." Before I left for the day, the HR rep cautiously stopped me. "Miss Sterling already approved it." He hesitated. "It's just I don't think she noticed it was your name on the form. Should I point it out to her?" I gave a small smile. "No, don't go out of your way. Just follow the standard procedure." Chloe had just been at Julian's welcome back party last night. Today, she was so happy, she couldn't even be bothered to come into the office. She wouldn't have time to notice a detail like this. For the next 2 days, Chloe remained absent from the office. I spent the time starting my immigration paperwork and methodically throwing out everything in my apartment that had a connection to her. The expensive watches, the keys to the limited edition sports cars, even the small trinkets she'd given me on a whim. I wanted none of it. Then, on the evening of the 3rd day, my phone buzzed. An iMessage from an unknown number read, "I know you slept with Chloe for years, but she's with me now. You'd better stay away from her. She'd never be into a washed-up old man like you who can't perform." I frowned, and just as I was about to ask who it was, a call came in from Chloe. "Ethan, come downstairs." Her voice held a cheerfulness I hadn't heard in a long time. A black Maybach was parked in front of the building. Chloe, in a sundress, leaned against the door, the sunlight dappling her exquisite, radiant face. For a moment, I was transported back to when she was 15, waiting for me, just like this at the school gates. She raised an eyebrow. "I'm taking you somewhere." Then she pulled the car door open. I hadn't expected our destination to be a high-end department store. Chloe dragged me through every luxury boutique, holding up one piece of clothing after another against my frame. Do you like it? I looked at my reflection, draped in designer labels, and felt a complex mix of emotions. You don't have to buy me these things, Ethan, she said, suddenly leaning in close, her warm breath tickling my ear. You and Julian have about the same build. If you like it, he'll definitely like it too. I froze. So, this was all for Julian. Are you two together? Chloe's eyes crinkled into a smile. I confessed to him the night of the party. Turns out he's like me all this time, too. He said he was just never sure how I felt and couldn't believe I'd be into him, which is why we never got together. She rambled on like a teenager with her first crush. I listened quietly, my mind flashing back to that venomous text message. I hadn't known who sent it before, but now it was all perfectly clear. Chloe, I interrupted gently. What is it you like about him? She answered without a second thought. He's so gentle and kind. He's not like other guys. I thought of the words from the text. Washed up old man. Can't perform. And my brow furrowed slightly. Kind. I had my doubts. After a moment of silence, I spoke up. He might not be the person you think he is. The smile vanished from Chloe's face. Though the curve of her lips remained, her eyes went cold. Ethan, I thought you knew your place. Don't you dare slander the man I cherish most just because you're jealous. Despite her age as the heir to a powerful dynasty, she had an undeniable presence. I felt the sudden oppressive weight of her aura and knew I had overstepped. I'm sorry, I said, ultimately choosing silence. I didn't show her the message. On the drive back, Chloe's phone suddenly rang. When she answered, Julian's panicked voice came through the speaker. Chloe, I've been kidnapped. Help me. Chloe's expression changed instantly. She pulled out her phone to track Julian's location. The second it pinged, she wrenched the steering wheel, making a sharp U-turn. Before I could react, inertia threw me against the passenger window and blood started streaming from a gash on my forehead. But Chloe didn't even spare me a glance. She floored the gas, speeding toward the hotel rooftop. The kidnapper on the roof was the CEO of a company the Sterling Corporation had recently driven into bankruptcy. He held a knife to Julian's throat. Chloe Sterling, you ruined my life and my family. Now I'm going to make you lose the one you love forever. Clutching my bleeding forehead, I watched as Chloe's panic lasted only a second before she actually smiled. Winning and losing is part of the game in business. Don't you think you're being a bit of a sore loser? As she spoke, she grabbed my arm. Besides, you can't even get your target right. He's not my boyfriend. This man next to me is. Her smile was flippant. She leaned in and whispered intimately in my ear. Ethan, let's just ignore them and go. Despite her words, her steps were deliberately slow as she turned to leave. I instantly understood her plan. She was using me as bait to secure Julian's safety. The kidnapper fell for it. He released Julian and lunged for me before I could even react. His arm locked around my neck, dragging me backward toward the edge of the roof. I heard Chloe scream my name, her voice filled with a panic I had never heard before. But it was too late. My back hit the railing, and in the next instant, a sudden feeling of weightlessness consumed me. The wind roared in my ears, my heart pounding as if it would burst from my chest. From over 20 stories up, the fall would only take a few seconds. I closed my eyes. The last thought that flashed through my mind was that the little girl had finally grown up, old enough to sacrifice me for the man she loved without a moment's hesitation. When I woke again, a blinding white light forced my eyes shut. Mr. Hayes, you're finally awake, a nurse said, sighing in relief. You lost a lot of blood. We almost lost you. Your girlfriend was frantic. She arranged emergency blood transfers, brought in specialists. She nearly tore the hospital apart. My throat was dry and my voice. She's not my girlfriend. We're nothing to each other. The door to my room swung open. Chloe stood in the doorway, her expression dark. What do you mean nothing to each other? The nurse, sensing the tension, quickly finished changing my four and hurried out. Chloe walked to my bedside, her eyes fixed on my pale face. Ethan, are you angry with me? I looked at her calmly. What would I be angry about? Chloe pressed on. But Ethan, Julian is my boyfriend. Of course, I had to put him first. I managed a small smile. He's your boyfriend. Of course, you should put him first. That being the case, what reason would I have to be angry? Chloe froze. She had clearly come to placate me, but my indifferent response only seemed to make her expression darken. Is that really what you think? Yes. A nameless frustration was building in Chloe's chest, and I only fanned the flames. You should go take care of Julian. He must have been terrified. She stared at me for a few seconds before turning and leaving, her face a cold mask. After leaving my room, Chloe didn't go straight to Julian's. She stood at the end of the hall and called her best friend. Let me ask you something, she said, leaning against the wall, her expression troubled. If someone who's really into you suddenly stops getting jealous when you're nice to another guy, what does that mean? A soft laugh came from the other end of the line. What else could it mean? He's just that into you. Chloe frowned. What are you talking about? Her friend teased. Getting jealous is for amateurs. Real love is when they just quietly watch over you. The guy loves you to his very core. Don't you get it? The strange frustration in Chloe's chest instantly vanished, and the corners of her mouth turned up in an unconscious smile. That sports car you liked in the garage, it's yours. Her friend gasped. A few words of advice are worth a couple million. Call me anytime you need this kind of help. Hanging up, Chloe was in a fantastic mood. Just as she thought, Ethan was still hopelessly in love with her. She turned and headed for Julian's room. During my hospital stay, I often saw Julian's posts on my Facebook feed. He wrote that he was terrified when Chloe got hurt because of me and that he was insisting on taking her to the Maldives to help her de-stress. The post included a photo of Chloe feeding him fruit on their private jet. I scrolled past it without expression. It was for the best, I thought. As long as he was focused on Chloe, he wouldn't have time to cause trouble for me. On the day I was discharged, Chloe wasn't in the city. According to her Facebook, she was in Switzerland skiing with Julian. I counted the days. My resignation would be officially processed in 3 more days. Back home, I started packing. I hadn't accumulated much over the years. It all fit in one suitcase. I was about to call my landlord to terminate the lease when my phone rang. It was Chloe. Her voice was rushed. Ethan, get to the Azure Club right away. Something's happened with Julian. When I arrived, the scene was pure chaos. Julian was standing behind Chloe, his face as white as a sheet. A mangled sports car was stopped at the club's entrance, and in front of it, a pedestrian lay on the ground, bleeding heavily. Chloe handed me a glass of whiskey. Ethan, Julian was driving drunk and hit someone. The police are on their way. He's not good under pressure, so you need to take the fall for him. Don't worry, you'll be in a holding cell for 2 days at most before I get my lawyers to pull you out. I'll handle everything. You just need to cover for him with the police for a couple of days. I looked up at her. What if I don't want to? Chloe's voice was grave. Ethan, I'm not asking you. I'm your boss. I stared at her for a few seconds, then suddenly smiled. Fine. I took the glass and downed it in one go. The strong alcohol burned my throat, and I could immediately feel an allergic reaction starting. When the police arrived, I drunkenly confessed to being the one behind the wheel. Those 48 hours in the precinct were a nightmare. I don't know if Julian arranged it, but I was thrown into a crowded holding cell. New meat, a heavily tattooed man sneered, walking over. You've got the look of a kept man. He suddenly grabbed my hair and slammed my head against the wall. I hear you've got some nerve. Crossing Miss Sterling's new boyfriend. I fought back as hard as I could, but several others pinned me to the floor, kicking and punching me. You piece of trash, one of them spat. You think you're worthy of competing with Mr. Vance? Pain washed over my entire body, but I bit my lip hard, refusing to make a sound. All the bruises were hidden beneath my clothes where no one would see them. On the morning of the 3rd day, Chloe finally arrived. She frowned when she saw my pale face. Ethan, why do you look so terrible? I wanted to tell her what I'd been through for the last 48 hours, but then I remembered I was leaving today. There was no point. Did you not sleep well in here, Ethan? I'm sorry you had to go through this. She reached out to touch my face, but I flinched away. Her hand froze in midair, and her tone softened. I would have been here sooner, but Julian came down with a fever. So because Julian had a fever, She left me locked in this place for 2 days to be beaten for 2 days. I let out a bitter, self-mocking laugh. I said nothing as I walked past, my shoulder brushing against hers. Chloe hurried after me, grabbing my hand and pulling me toward her car. I'll take you home so you can rest. Take me to the office. She frowned. Why would you go to the office now? Let's go home first. My tone was quiet, but left no room for argument. I have something important to do. Chloe remembered how I used to be just like this, insisting on finishing a merger proposal sheet assigned, even while running a high fever. When we arrive at the office building, I unbuckle my seatbelt. Just as I was about to get out, Chloe suddenly said, "I'll go up with you." There's no need. I pushed the door open, and a blast of cold wind stripped away the last of my warmth. Just then, Chloe's phone rang. I could hear Julian's voice on the other end. "My stomach hurts. Can you come be with me?" Chloe's brow furrowed deeper as she looked up at me. I met her gaze. "Go," I said, my tone considerate as always. "I'll head home as soon as I'm finished here." Chloe stared at me for a few seconds before finally sighing. "I'm sorry about all this." She reached out to touch my face, but I subtly leaned away before the window rolled up. She said one last thing, "I'll make it up to you after I'm done taking care of Julian." I stood there watching the black Maybach disappear into the flow of traffic. I walked into the office, finalized my resignation, said goodbye to my colleagues, and then went home to grab my suitcase and head to the airport. Before boarding the plane, I deleted all of Chloe's contact information and threw my SIM card in the trash. As the plane climbed into the sky, I slowly closed my eyes. 12 years I've been by your side, Chloe. This time, I can finally say goodbye. When Chloe arrived at Julian's apartment, he was curled up on the sofa, his face pale as a sheet. He weakly reached out a hand. "Chloe, it hurts so much." Without a word, Chloe helped him up and guided him to the elevator. Julian leaned against her, inhaling her faint perfume, a small smile playing on his lips. Chloe's brow was furrowed, but her voice was low and gentle. "Don't be scared. We'll be at the hospital in a minute." The black Maybach sped through the city, running several red lights before screeching to a halt in front of New York's most expensive private hospital. The hospital director was already waiting outside with a team of specialists. The director approached them respectfully. "Miss Sterling, please don't worry. We have the best suite and physicians ready for him." Chloe nodded, following as Julian was escorted to the VIP wing. Nurses turned to watch as they passed, whispering among themselves, "Oh my God, that's the Sterling heiress. She's gorgeous, and she spoils her boyfriend." The test results came back quickly. Mild gastritis. Chloe frowned. "Just gastritis? Are you sure there's nothing else?" The attending physician wiped sweat from his brow. "Miss Sterling, rest assured, Mr. Vance only has a mild case. We've already prepared the best course of treatment." Chloe said, "Have that new experimental drug from Europe flown in. Money is no object." The doctor frowned. "But a single dose of that drug costs over $1 million. To use it on mild gastritis seems a bit." Chloe cut him off. I said, "Money is not an object." Lying in his hospital bed, Julian listened as Chloe spent a fortune on him, and a sweet warmth spread through his chest. He reached out and tugged on her sleeve. "Chloe, don't worry so much." Chloe turned and took his hand, her voice gentle. "Just get some rest. I'll stay here with you for the next 3 days." Chloe never left his bedside. She personally fed him his meals and medicine, even carefully helping him when he needed to shift positions. When Julian mentioned a craving for soup from a specific restaurant on the Upper West Side, she had it delivered immediately. When he complained the room was stuffy, she had it filled with fresh flowers. When he casually mentioned he was bored, she ordered a limited edition supercar and had it delivered to the hospital garage. All of New York's high society was buzzing about how the Sterling heiress was spoiling her new boyfriend. On the day he was discharged, Chloe came to pick him up herself. Julian sat in the passenger seat, hesitating before he spoke. "Chloe, it gets so lonely living by myself." Chloe kept her eyes on the road. The tips of his ears turned red as his voice grew quieter. "We're a couple now. So can I maybe move in with you?" Chloe's hands tightened on the steering wheel for a moment. She remembered that I had already cleared all of my things out of her mansion, and she did want to see Julian every day. She nodded. Julian was ecstatic. He moved into Chloe's mansion that same day. The moment he walked in, he excitedly started redecorating. "Chloe, what if we change the sofa to a white one? And what about blue curtains? I want to use these sheets for the bedroom." Chloe stood to the side, replying gently to each of his questions. Of course, but once the entire mansion had been transformed, Chloe stood in the middle of the living room and was struck by a sudden feeling of strangeness. I had been the one to furnish this place. From the furniture to the decor, every single detail had been tailored to her tastes and habits. And now, Julian keenly sensed the shift in her mood. "Chloe, don't you like it?" Chloe shook her head and fell into his arms. "Of course I do. If you like it, I love it." In the days that followed, Julian used his recent hospital stay as an excuse to demand Chloe stay home from work and spend all her time with him. Chloe agreed without hesitation, taking him to one exclusive venue after another. At a Sotheby's auction, Julian admired an antique vase, and Chloe immediately bought it for $10 million. At a 3-Michelin-star restaurant, he casually mentioned he liked the chef's cooking, and Chloe hired him away on the spot to be their private chef. The entire social circle marveled at how Chloe was spoiling Julian beyond belief. That evening, Julian, wearing a bathrobe, knocked on Chloe's bedroom door. "Chloe, can I sleep with you tonight?" Chloe was reviewing some documents. She looked up, her gaze lingering on him for a moment before she looked away. "Julian, go back to your room." Julian's eyes immediately welled up. "Don't you like me anymore?" Chloe immediately stood up, moved into his embrace, and tilted her head up to kiss him. It was a gentle, lingering kiss that only ended when she felt the heat in his hands. "How can I not like you?" she murmured, cupping his face. "It's because I like you so much that I want to treasure this. I want to save our first time for our wedding night." "Okay." Julian finally smiled and nodded. "Okay, good night." "Good night." After closing the door, Chloe got back into bed, but found she couldn't sleep. Staring at the ceiling, she suddenly remembered her first time with me. She had been drunk, mistaking me for Julian, and we had slept together in her confused state. When she woke up the next morning, I didn't say a word. I just quietly got dressed and made her breakfast, just like any other day. In every encounter after that, I was the one who guided her, always patiently waiting for her to get comfortable. Chloe felt her body react, and as the warmth spread through her, she realized with a jolt that she hadn't seen me in almost 2 weeks. I hadn't contacted her once since she'd made me take the fall for Julian. He was probably missing her like crazy, she thought, but was too afraid to disturb her and Julian. He always knew when to advance and when to retreat. At that thought, she decided she would go to the office tomorrow with a gift for me. After all, she had promised to make it up to me. Chloe stood before her jewelry collection, her slender fingers gliding over rows of necklaces before settling on the sapphire set I had given her last year. As she was adjusting in the mirror, Julian came in and wrapped his arms around her from behind. "Chloe, are you going out today?" She glanced down at his hands on her waist, her tone gentle. "I'm heading to the office for a bit." Julian blinked. Why the sudden trip to the office? Chloe had no intention of hiding it. "About last time when I asked Ethan to take the fall." As she spoke, she pulled a velvet box from a drawer. Inside was a set of jewelry she had just acquired from Sotheby's, an emerald-type pin, a pair of sapphire cufflinks, and a pair of diamond rings. Julian's eyes fixed on the diamond rings, his nails digging into his palms, but his smile was innocent. "I should go with you. I owe Ethan a big thank you for what he did. I should tell him in person." Chloe didn't think much of it and agreed. Half an hour later, the black Maybach pulled up to the Sterling Tower. Chloe walked into the elevator, holding Julian's hand. Employees turned to stare as they passed. "Miss Sterling and Mr. Vance make such a handsome couple. I heard she's been spending a fortune on him. She really dotes on him." The elevator doors opened onto the bustling executive floor. Chloe scanned the area, but she couldn't see me anywhere. Julian asked curiously, "Which office is Ethan's?" His office was right next to hers, but now it stood empty. "He's not here." Just as Chloe was about to ask someone, Julian suddenly cried out and stumbled. "Chloe, he yelped, grabbing her arm. I think I twisted my ankle. Chloe immediately bent down to check on him. Does it hurt? Julian put on a brave face. A little. You go find Ethan. Don't worry about me. Chloe helped him up. Don't be silly. She turned to the nearest assistant. Give these gift boxes to my assistant, Ethan. Tell him they're from me. The young assistant froze, looking confused. Your assistant, Ethan? Chloe's tone grew cold. Is there a problem? No problem. The assistant stammered quickly, taking the boxes and watching as Chloe helped Julian away. The moment the elevator doors closed, the entire executive floor exploded with chatter. Does Miss Sterling seriously not know that Ethan quit? Apparently not. It's been weeks. He didn't even tell her he was leaving. Come to think of it, I haven't heard anything about him at all lately. Chloe had intended to take Julian to the hospital, but he insisted he was tired of hospitals and that it was just a minor sprain that would be fine with some rest. She didn't push it and took him back to the mansion. For the next several days, Julian found endless ways to keep her occupied. He said he wanted to see the Northern Lights, so Chloe chartered a private jet to Norway. He mentioned a craving for a limited edition dessert from a bakery in Paris, and she had it flown in. When he woke from a nightmare in the middle of the night, she would drop everything to comfort him back to sleep. For an entire week, Chloe didn't think of me once. Then, at a business gala, Julian's face suddenly went pale, and he doubled over, clutching his stomach. Chloe, my stomach really hurts. Chloe immediately wrapped an arm around him. What's wrong? He leaned weakly against her shoulder. I think my gastritis is flaring up again. Chloe froze for a second. She suddenly remembered that she used to have terrible stomach problems, too, and she would always make a special soothing broth that helped ease the pain. She remembered one time when she was curled up on the sofa in agony, and I had fed it to her by the spoonful. She instinctively pulled out her phone and dialed my number, intending to ask me to make some and bring it over. After ringing for a long time, the call went to voicemail. Chloe frowned and dialed again. Still no answer. On the third try, a cold, automated voice informed her, "The number you have dialed has been disconnected." She stared at her phone screen, and a sudden realization hit her. Chloe's face fell. I had blocked her number. Chloe stared at her phone, her brow furrowed. She couldn't understand why I would block her. Was it because she'd made me take the fall for Julian? But she had sent that jewelry as an apology, hadn't she? Was it possible I didn't like the gifts? A wave of unprecedented panic washed over her. In her memory, I had been by her side for 12 years, always sensible, always aware of my place, never causing a fuss. A member of the event staff cautiously approached with a cup of hot water. "Miss Sterling, here you are." Chloe snapped back to reality, taking the cup and handing it to Julian. "Drink this. It will help." Julian took the cup and sipped it, his face still pale. "Chloe, will you take me home?" For the first time, Chloe refused him. "Julian, I have something very important to take care of. Go rest in our hotel suite for a bit. The driver will take you home when you're feeling better." Julian was taken aback by her serious expression, assuming there was a crisis at the company. He didn't dare press her further. "Okay, then you go do what you need to do." Chloe leaned in and gave him a soft kiss on the forehead. "I'll come home as soon as I'm finished." Leaving the ballroom, Chloe practically ran to the parking garage. She jumped in her car, slammed the accelerator, and the black Maybach shot forward like an arrow. 20 minutes later, the car screeched to a halt in front of my apartment building. Chloe took the stairs two at a time, stopping in front of my familiar door to knock. "Ethan, Ethan, Ethan Hayes." There was no answer. The motion-activated light in the hallway flickered on at the sound of her voice, then quickly went dark again. In the blackness, she stared at the closed door, a tight fist squeezing her chest, making it hard to breathe. Why wasn't I answering her calls? Why had I blocked her? Why wasn't I opening the door? The next-door apartment opened suddenly, and a young man poked his head out, frowning. "What's with all the noise this late at night?" Chloe shot him a glacial look, and he immediately shrank back, his bravado gone. Her voice was low, as if she were trying to keep some powerful emotion in check. "I'm looking for the person in apartment 1203. The man blinked. "The guy in 1203, he moved out." The word struck Chloe like a bolt of lightning. "Moved out." When the man thought for a moment, he added, "About 2 weeks ago, I think." I was heading out and saw him leaving with a suitcase. Chloe's pupils contracted. 2 weeks ago, right after she had made me take the fall for Julian. She stood there frozen, a profound sense of panic washing over her. I was gone. Why would I leave? Why wouldn't I tell her I was moving? Didn't I used to tell her everything? She sped back to the office, running 3 red lights and nearly crashing into a guardrail. She didn't care. When she stormed onto the executive floor, her dark expression startled everyone. Chloe marched straight to my desk. It was completely empty except for the jewelry boxes she had sent over, which sat there unopened. Chloe's voice was like ice. Where's my assistant? Why haven't these gifts been opened? Why is his desk empty every time I come here? The assistants all exchanged nervous glances. Chloe felt like she was about to explode. Somebody talk. Terrified, one of the assistants finally stammered. Ethan, he resigned. You approved his resignation form, didn't you? Chloe froze solid. She approved it. Why had she approved it? She snatched the tablet from the assistant's hands and pulled up the internal approval system, her finger jabbing at the screen so hard it nearly cracked. The system log was crystal clear. 1 month ago, resignation application submitted by Ethan Hayes. Approver, CEO Chloe Sterling. Status, approved. Chloe stared at the entry, her mind a complete blank. That was the day of Julian's welcome back party. Her mind had been completely consumed with him. She must have just tapped approve without even looking. And now she was discovering that the person who had resigned was me. The tablet slipped from her grasp, hitting the marble floor with a sharp crack. Chloe stood frozen, suddenly finding it hard to breathe. For 12 years, I had been a constant in her life, like the air she breathed. She had grown so accustomed to my presence that the thought of me leaving had never once crossed her mind. Why did he quit? The terrified assistant whispered. He didn't say, but when he came in to file the paperwork, he seemed calm. Chloe's fists clenched, her knuckles turning white. Calm? To hell with calm. She completely lost control, kicking over a nearby chair, which crashed to the floor with a deafening clang. The assistants all took a step back in fear. Chloe stood there, her chest heaving, her eyes wild with a panic and fury she herself didn't yet understand. Find out where Ethan Hayes went. Where is he now? Where is he living? What's his contact information? I want to know everything within the next 30 minutes. The assistant scrambled. Yes, Miss Sterling. Right away. Half an hour later, her assistants returned with a confusing jumble of information. Miss Sterling, Mr. Hayes was spotted in the Maldives last week. That's not right. My records show he was in Paris the day before yesterday. Airline data shows he flew to Switzerland yesterday. As for his contact information, it seems Mr. Hayes gets a new number in every country he visits, so we can't be sure which one is current. Chloe stared at the chaotic travel history on the screen, her temples throbbing. I had been traveling constantly, changing my number in every new location. It was obvious I was deliberately trying to disappear. Switzerland. She stared at the most recent update, her fingers drumming impatiently on the desk. Get the jet ready. I'm flying to Switzerland now. Miss Sterling, you have that important board meeting tomorrow. Chloe shot to her feet. Cancel it. Cancel everything on my schedule. She grabbed her jacket and strode out of the office, already on the phone. Get the private jet ready. I'm flying to Switzerland tonight. I need to leave immediately. After hanging up, Chloe still couldn't get her emotions under control. She didn't understand what had happened to Ethan. Why would he just leave? Was he angry that she'd made him take the fall? But she had promised to make it up to him, hadn't she? On a whim, Chloe bought a private island, having all the deeds drawn up in her name. Her butler hurried to keep up with her. Miss Sterling, the jet is ready for departure. Chloe nodded, striding toward the car waiting for her. Just then, a familiar voice called out from behind her. Chloe. Chloe frowned. Julian, what are you doing here? Julian stood shivering in the cold wind, wearing only a thin white shirt, his face pale. I waited for you at home, but you never came. I called your assistant, and she said you were leaving the country. Are you going to find Ethan? Julian frowned. He chose to quit. He's been working for years. It's normal for him to want a break. Why are you so obsessed with finding him? Chloe's voice went cold. There is no why. He belongs by my side. Julian was stunned. It was the first time Chloe had ever spoken to him in that tone. But Chloe cut him off. Enough. You're not well. You shouldn't be standing out here in the cold. She turned to her driver. Take Mr. Vance home. Julian suddenly grabbed her arm. I'm not going home. If you insist on going, then I'm going with you. Chloe's brow furrowed. She was about to refuse, but Julian had already climbed into the car. Time was short. She was afraid that if she delayed, he would disappear again. She had no choice but to get in with him. On the private jet, Julian stared at the piles of luxury gift boxes filling the cabin, speechless. Is all of this for Ethan? Chloe didn't even look up from the tablet, displaying my travel history. I made him unhappy. I need to bring some gifts to win him back. Julian clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms. After the plane took off, he clutched his stomach and whispered, Chloe, my stomach still really hurts. Chloe kept her eyes glued to the tablet. Deal with it. Could we ask the pilot too? She cut him off. No, we'll talk after I find him. Julian's face went pale, and he finally fell silent. Throughout the flight, Chloe never took her eyes off my travel itinerary, terrified I would vanish again. After a 12-hour flight, the jet landed in Geneva. But when Chloe and her entourage arrived at my hotel, the front desk clerk gave her some infuriating news. Mr. Hayes checked out yesterday. Chloe slammed her fist on the marble countertop, making the receptionist jump back in fear. Chloe immediately called her assistant. He's gone again. Find out where he is now. 10 minutes later, her assistant reported back, her voice trembling. Miss Sterling, Mr. Hayes flew to Iceland this morning. Chloe turned on her heel, marched back to the jet, and ordered, Take me to Iceland now. Julian trotted to keep up with her. Chloe, we just landed. Shouldn't we rest for a bit? Without looking back, Chloe said, If you're tired, you can go home. I have to find him. Julian bit his lip, his eyes red with frustration, but he could only drag his exhausted body after her. He didn't understand. Just yesterday, she had been catering to his every whim. The moment she heard I was gone, she had become a completely different person. After another 10+ hours in the air, the jet landed in Iceland. By then, Julian was pale and weak. But Chloe didn't even glance at him. She headed straight for my hotel the moment they deplaned. The receptionist replied politely, Mr. Hayes checked out this morning. I believe he said he was going to Norway to see the aurora borealis. Chloe's expression became terrifyingly dark. Without a word, she turned and marched out. Back to the jet. We're going to Norway. Julian finally broke, grabbing her arm. Chloe, we've been flying for days. Can we please just rest for a little while? Chloe shook his hand off. I told you if you want to rest, stay here. I don't have time to waste. She then strode toward the airfield. Julian stood frozen, tears welling in his eyes. He had never seen this side of Chloe before. Obsessive, frantic, with eyes only for one man, Ethan Hayes. Like chasing a ghost, they followed my trail across half of Europe. And everywhere they went, the answer was the same. Mr. Hayes just left. A week later, when they learned I had gone to the Maldives, Chloe was ready to leave at a moment's notice. Julian finally snapped. He grabbed Chloe's wrist. Enough. Stop looking for him. He's obviously on a trip around the world. Whatever you have to say to him, can't it wait until he's finished? Chloe coldly yanked her hand away. I can't wait that long. Julian's voice trembled. Why? I thought he was just like a brother to you. Why is it so important that you see him right now? Chloe seemed not to hear him, talking more to herself than to him. He could have traveled the world with me. Why did he have to leave me behind? Tears streamed down his face as he demanded, What exactly are your feelings for him? Have you even thought about it? Chloe froze. The question was like a sharp knife, plunging straight into her heart. What were her feelings for me? For 12 years, I had been a constant presence in her life, as essential and unnoticed as the air she breathed. She had grown so accustomed to me being there that the possibility of my absence had never occurred to her. The pilot's voice cut through her thoughts. Miss Sterling, the jet is ready for takeoff. Chloe snapped back to reality and pushed Julian's hand away. I don't have time to explain this to you. If you want to break up, fine. We're broken up. I'm going to find Ethan. She had only one thought in her mind. I have to get him back. Julian stared in disbelief, then ran after her, screaming, Chloe, you get back here." But she didn't stop. Her pace quickened until she was practically running up the stairs to the jet. The moment the cabin door closed, Julian collapsed onto the tarmac. He finally understood. To Chloe, Ethan had never been just a brother. On the plane, Chloe stared at my latest itinerary on her tablet, her fingers unconsciously tracing my path on the screen. Her butler said cautiously, "Miss Sterling, Mr. Hayes has booked a hotel in the Maldives for a full week. He's unlikely to leave so quickly this time." Chloe just grunted in response, her gaze fixed on the sea of clouds outside the window. The past week of chasing me had left her physically exhausted, but it was Julian's question that had truly drained her. What were her feelings for me? The memories came flooding back when she was 13, cornered in an alley by a group of older students, and I had charged in with a brick to save her. On her 14th birthday, when she ran away from home, and I had carried her on my back for 2 miles to bring her home. When she had her first heartbreak at 20, sobbing in my arms like a child while I just quietly patted her back. All these years, no matter how impulsive or reckless she was, I was always there, an unwavering beacon in her life. She suddenly remembered the last time she had seen me. I was standing outside the office building watching her leave to go to Julian, and I'd said goodbye. Her mind had been so full of him that she hadn't even turned around. Now that she thought about it, those were the last words I ever said to her. Chloe suddenly snapped. "Can't this thing go any faster?" The pilot's voice came over the intercom, apologetic. "Miss Sterling, we're already at maximum cruising speed." Chloe fell silent, but she continued to stare out the cockpit window as if her sheer force of will could make the plane fly faster. When I woke, sunlight was already streaming through the sheer curtains, filling the room. I stretched, feeling more relaxed than I had in years. Over the past month, I had traveled through 7 countries. I'd seen the northern lights in Iceland, experienced the romance of Paris, and witnessed the vastness of the African plains. It felt as if the beauty of the world was slowly washing away 12 years of repressed emotions. I was about to get up and open the curtains when an arm shot out from under the covers and pulled me back down onto the bed. A low, languid female voice whispered in my ear, "It's still early. Let's sleep a little longer." I went rigid, whipping my head around to find a face inches from my own. She was stunning, with sharp almond-shaped eyes that held a playful glint. She was every bit as beautiful as Chloe. I shoved her away. "This is my room. Who are you?" The woman, now fully awake, sat up, clutching the sheet to her chest. She raised an eyebrow. "Your room? Are you sure about that?" It was only then that I realized something was wrong. I leaped out of bed and ran out of the bedroom. Looking around, I froze. This wasn't the ocean view room I had booked. This was a ridiculously opulent presidential suite. I had too much to drink last night. I must have stumbled into the wrong room. The woman leaned against the doorframe, a playful smile on her lips. "Remember now?" I forced myself to remain calm. "Then why didn't you wake me up?" She let out a soft laugh. "Wake you up? The moment you stumbled in here, you grabbed onto me like I was a body pillow and wouldn't let go. I tried to wake you." She pointed to a few distinct red marks on her collarbone. "You did this last night. I'm not sure if you thought I was a pillow or if you were dreaming about rock climbing." My ears burned with embarrassment. I wished the ground would swallow me whole. I noticed she was speaking perfect English, which was a relief. At least we could communicate easily. I apologized profusely. "I'm so sorry. I'll cover the cost of the room for the night. And of course, I'll pay for any medical expenses if you want to get checked out." I pulled out a pen and jotted down my number on a notepad. "My name is Ethan." "Ethan Hayes," the woman interrupted, saying my full name with perfect accuracy. I looked up stunned. "You know me?" She raised an eyebrow. "We've met before. Have you forgotten?" I studied her face, which seemed increasingly familiar, but I couldn't for the life of me remember where we had met. She offered a hint. "Charleston, the Thorne family gala last March." It all came rushing back. Victoria Thorne, the heiress to the Thorne fortune out of Charleston. She was a few years older than Chloe, the same age as me. I had been there as Chloe's assistant and had spent the entire evening catering to my boss's every whim. I never had a chance to speak with Miss Thorne. "Miss Thorne?" I asked a little uncertainly. Victoria's lips curved into a smile. I'm impressed you remember me, Mr. Hayes. I corrected her automatically. I've resigned from that position. Victoria got out of bed. Well, then that gives me the perfect opportunity to poach you. How would you like to come work for my company? I'll double your salary. Her light perfume wafted over to me, and I instinctively took a step back. I'm sorry, Miss Thorne, but I'm not looking for work at the moment. I'm traveling again. I'm very sorry about last night. If there's anything else I can do to compensate you, please don't hesitate to call. With that, I prepared to make a quick exit. But Victoria suddenly blocked my path, her gaze intense. You know I'm not lacking for anything, Ethan. Then what is it you want? Victoria looked me straight in the eye. I'm in need of a boyfriend. How about you offer yourself up for the position? I was stunned. You can't be serious. Her playful smile vanished. Do I look like I'm joking? I frowned. There are countless heirs from powerful families. Why me? Victoria took a step closer, a slow smile spreading across her face. Isn't it obvious? I like you. I stared at Victoria, a rare flicker of panic disturbing my composure. You have to be kidding. Victoria chuckled softly. Mr. Hayes, Victoria Thorne, never joke about my feelings. I frowned. But we've only met twice. 3 times, Victoria corrected. You've forgotten one. The first was at the gala in Charleston last March. You were wearing a navy suit and spent the entire night looking after that little princess, Chloe Sterling. When she got drunk, you took drinks for her until you broke out in hives from an allergic reaction. The second time was at the Tokyo Summit. You were on stage giving a presentation, and I was in the audience. You were wearing a black bespoke suit, and your analysis of the merger case was breathtakingly brilliant. Afterwards, when a Japanese delegate tried to force drinks on you, you handled it with such effortless grace. It left quite an impression, and the third time is right now. I was speechless. I couldn't believe she remembered everything in such vivid detail. Her tone was so frank and open that I had no reason to doubt her. Victoria continued. The rumor in our circles was always that you were in love with Chloe, so I never made a move. But now that you've resigned and left her, that means I'm free to act. Her words were so direct, I didn't know how to respond. Then a thought struck me. A CEO as busy as Victoria Thorne wouldn't just show up in the Maldives for a vacation, and she certainly wouldn't be here on business. I looked her straight in the eye. You followed me here, didn't you? Victoria raised an eyebrow. Follow is such an ugly word. Let's just say I heard you had left Chloe, so I pursued you abroad. She let out a soft laugh. I just didn't expect you to move so fast. I had to chase you through 7 countries before I finally caught up. Last night, however, was a complete accident. I had intended to reintroduce myself in a more conventional manner. I didn't expect, she said, glancing meaningfully at the rumpled sheets, that you would just barge into my room. My ears burned, and I quickly changed the subject. I'm sorry, but I'm not looking to date anyone right now. Victoria's smile was unbothered. I'm in no hurry. You can refuse to be with me, but you can't deny me the right to pursue you. She said it with such confidence that I was at a loss for words. I couldn't think of a single argument against it, so I just mumbled an excuse and left. An hour later, dressed and ready for dinner, I opened my door to find Victoria leaning against the wall opposite my room. Fancy meeting you here, she said with a smile. Dinner together? I was about to refuse, but she cut me off. We're both heading to the same restaurant. You wouldn't be so cruel as to make me walk alone, would you? Defeated, I silently accepted her company. We walked side by side along the beach. The sea breeze tousled my hair, and a stray piece of down floated onto my eyelashes. I was about to brush it away, but Victoria was faster. Don't move, she said, her fingers gently brushing my eyelashes with an impossibly soft touch. I held my breath, catching the faint scent of her perfume. In that charged moment, a furious shout came from behind us. What do you think you're doing? I whipped around to see Chloe standing a short distance away, her face a mask of terrifying rage. I thought I was hallucinating. What was Chloe doing here? Before I could react, Chloe stormed over, yanked me behind her, and snarled, Thorne, I suggest you stay away from my man. Victoria calmly smoothed down her dress. Miss Sterling, if I recall correctly, he's no longer in your employ. Chloe gritted her teeth. I never approved it. I pulled my arm from her grasp. "You already approved the paperwork," I said coldly. "I have, in fact, resigned." My words were like a bucket of ice water dumped over her head. She stared at me in disbelief. Ethan, in the past, whenever she called me that, my anger would melt away. But this time I just asked, "What are you doing here?" Chloe reached for my hand. "I'm taking you home." I took a step back. "I'm not going back." Chloe's voice rose. "You don't have a choice. I'm your—" I cut her off. "You're my boss again? You're not my boss anymore. I told you I quit." With that, I turned and walked away. Victoria gave Chloe a long, meaningful look before following me. Chloe stood frozen, her fists clenched so tight her knuckles cracked. She wanted to run after me, but the memory of the coldness in my eyes stopped her. She went to the front desk and booked the room right next to mine. The moment she was in her room, Chloe threw off her jacket in frustration. The image of my cold, indifferent eyes flashed in her mind again and again, a pain so sharp it nearly took her breath away. She pulled out her phone and called her best friend. "Let me ask you something," Chloe said, her voice trembling. "If a woman sees a man she knows with another woman and feels like she's going crazy with anger, and the thought of him leaving for good feels like a knife twisting in her gut, what does that mean?" Her friend's laughter came through the phone. "Isn't it obvious? It means your friend is in love with him." The words hit Chloe like a physical blow. The phone nearly slipped from her hand. In love? She was in love with me. Julian's words suddenly echoed in her ears. "You say you don't care about him, but the second he's gone, you fall apart." Chloe's heart began to race. It was true. In all the years Julian was away, she had never once gone to look for him. But I had only been gone for a few weeks, and she had chased me across the globe like a mad woman. With this realization came a wave of unprecedented, overwhelming joy. It was wonderful. She was in love with me. The thought made her heart pound. Since she loved me, and she was sure I loved her, all she had to do was tell me, and I would come right back to her, and then they would be together forever. That evening, Chloe stood outside my hotel room door. She took a deep breath and knocked. "Ethan, I need to talk to you." Silence from within. She knocked again. "I know you're in there." Still no answer. Chloe pulled out her phone to call me, only to be met with the automated message. "The number you have dialed has been disconnected." She hung up in frustration and called the front desk. "I need a key card for room 1203. "I'm sorry, miss, but we can't." She cut the clerk off, her voice cold. "I am Chloe Sterling of the Sterling Corporation. I am this hotel's majority shareholder." 5 minutes later, Chloe had a key card in her hand. She opened the door. The room was empty except for my suitcase in the corner. Hearing the sound of the shower, Chloe breathed a sigh of relief and walked to the bathroom door. "Ethan, we need to talk." The water shut off abruptly. "Get out." My voice came through the door, terrifyingly calm. Chloe stubbornly held her ground. "I have something important to tell you. I realize that my feelings for you are—" I cut her off. "I don't care. Please leave." Chloe's breath caught in her throat. "You won't even listen to what I have to say." "Chloe," I said, using her name for the first time. "In 12 years, when have you ever once cared about what I wanted?" The words were like a knife twisting in Chloe's heart. She opened her mouth to speak, but found she had nothing to say. It was true. For 12 years, I had been the one to accommodate her, to take care of her, to satisfy her every whim. And what had she ever given me in return? Chloe's voice was strained. "I'm sorry. I was so immature." The bathroom door opened, and I stepped out in a bathrobe, my hair still dripping. I looked at her calmly. "You don't need to apologize. Our relationship was always just a transaction." Chloe frowned. "What transaction?" "I said I kept you company while you grew up, and you bailed out my father's company. Now the transaction is complete." The word struck Chloe like a physical blow. She staggered back a step. "What did you just say?" I enunciated each word clearly. "I got close to you for the money. It was always about the money." The room was deathly silent. Chloe stared at me, searching my face for any sign that I was lying. But my expression was perfectly calm, a calmness that terrified her. Chloe shook her head. "That's impossible. You always—" I let out a cold laugh. "Always what? Always did whatever you wanted? Always let you have your way with me? That was because my father's company needed funding from Sterling Corporation. Chloe's chest rose and fell rapidly. So all these years, you felt nothing for me? I looked her straight in the eye. Nothing at all. The words were like a razor-sharp knife, slicing her heart in two. She thought of all the times I had stayed up all night with her when she was sick, the way I had gently comforted her through her first heartbreak, the night she had drunkenly mistaken me for Julian, and I hadn't pushed her away. Chloe lunged forward and grabbed my wrist. You're lying. If you didn't feel anything for me, why would you do all those things? I let her hold on, my expression as calm as if I were looking at a stranger. Because my mother needed money for her medical treatments, and my father used that to force me to stay by your side. Chloe's hand fell to her side. So that was it. All those moments she had mistaken for love had been nothing more than an elaborate lie. Her voice trembled. I don't believe you. Look me in the eye and say it again. I sighed. Chloe, have you spoken to my father? Asked him what I stated calmly. When I was 15, my father's company was on the verge of bankruptcy. He came to me and told me that if I could win your favor, the Stirlings would invest. You can ask him yourself. He'll tell you everything. Chloe's face was ashen, her voice a hoarse whisper. So for 12 years, being good to me, staying by my side while I grew up, even sleeping with me, it was all just for the money? I paused for a moment, then gave a slight nod. Yes, that one word was the final straw that broke her. She stumbled backward, knocking over a side table. The sound of shattering glass seemed to snap her out of her daze. She looked at my impassive face and suddenly laughed, a broken, hollow sound. Well done, Ethan Hayes. You're truly ruthless. With that, she turned and left, slamming the door behind her. I stood there, listening to her footsteps fade down the hall, and finally let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Chloe stumbled back to her own room and collapsed on the bed. She stared at the ceiling, the image of my calm, almost cruel expression replaying in her mind. Each of my words a fresh cut, but the most painful part was knowing the truth and realizing it didn't matter. She still couldn't let me go. When I stepped out of my room, Victoria was leaning against the wall at the end of the hall, waiting. Is it over? I nodded, suddenly feeling exhausted. Victoria gave me a knowing look, but didn't press. I've made a reservation at a restaurant on the beach. We walked to the elevator side by side, neither of us mentioning Chloe. At dinner, Victoria thoughtfully ordered all of my favorite dishes and a bottle of excellent red wine. She poured me a glass. It's their signature vintage. I took a sip, my brow relaxing. It's delicious. Victoria suddenly asked, better than what the Stirlings keep in their cellar? I set down my glass. What are you really asking? Victoria looked me straight in the eye. What did she say to you? You look terrible. I was silent for a moment before telling her the truth. She told me she's in love with me, and then I gave a bitter smile. I told her the truth, that I only ever got close to her for the money. Victoria swirled the wine in her glass. And she believed you? I said coolly. I told her to ask my father. Victoria looked thoughtful. Hayes Industries must be in trouble now without the Stirlings backing. I shook my head. That has nothing to do with me. I've cut all ties with my family. Victoria raised an eyebrow. So clean a break? My voice was quiet. 12 years was long enough. My debt is paid. Victoria suddenly reached out and placed her hand over mine. So what's next for you? I looked out at the ocean. Keep traveling, I guess. It's a big world. Victoria asked softly, alone. I pulled my gaze from the horizon to meet her intense stare. Victoria. She cut me off. Call me Victoria. None of this formal stuff. I gave a weary smile. Victoria, what is it you see in me? We barely know each other. Victoria laughed softly. What do I like about you? I like that you pretend to be strong when you're clearly hurting. I like that you manage to stay sane after everything Chloe put you through. She paused. Do I need a reason to like you? My heart skipped a beat. Just as I was about to respond, there was a commotion at the entrance of the restaurant. I turned to look, and my expression hardened. Chloe was standing there, her face dark, and she was walking straight toward our table. Ethan, we need to talk. Victoria stood up. Miss Stirling, Ethan is on a date with me. Chloe swung at Victoria. Get out of my way. Victoria sidestepped the blow and caught Chloe's wrist. Miss Stirling, let's try to be civilized. Chloe wrenched her arm free and rushed to me, her eyes red as she threw her arms around me. I checked. Your father admitted everything. But Ethan, I don't care. She buried her face in my chest, her voice choked with sobs, her pride completely gone. I don't care why you came to me in the first place. What I feel for you is real. I love you. I love you so much. Ethan, please just come back to me. I stood there frozen. It was the first time I had ever seen Chloe so vulnerable. The proud, untouchable heiress was clinging to me like a lost child, begging me to love her. I took a deep breath and pried her fingers off me one by one. I'm sorry, but I'm not interested in you. I walked out of the restaurant without looking back, not letting out a sigh of relief until I was far away. Victoria asked, "Are you okay?" I shook my head. I just want to go back to my room. Back at my door, I was about to use my key card when Victoria suddenly put her hand on mine. Her voice was soft. "Ethan, be my boyfriend." I turned to look at her. "You know I'm going to say no." Victoria smiled. "You'll agree because we'll only be pretending." I stared at her, confused. Victoria took a step closer, backing me against the door. "Pretend to be my boyfriend, and Chloe will stop harassing you. I'm sure of it. Once we announce that we're a couple, her pride won't let her keep chasing you for long." Her warm breath was on my face, and my heart began to race. "You're taking advantage of me." Victoria admitted it freely. "I am. So is that a yes?" I looked at her face, so close to my own, and suddenly smiled. "In that case, I'd be honored to let you use me, Miss Thorne." A small smile played on Victoria's lips. "The pleasure is all mine." 3 days later, when Chloe showed up again, she found me and Victoria holding hands. I greeted her calmly. "Chloe, this is Victoria, my girlfriend." Chloe's gaze fell to our intertwined hands, and the color drained from her face. "When did this happen?" Victoria wrapped her arm around mine possessively. "A couple of days ago. Aren't you going to congratulate us, Miss Sterling?" Chloe stared at me, searching my face for any sign of deception, but I just met her gaze calmly, my expression unreadable. Chloe suddenly laughed. "I don't believe you, Ethan. You'd do anything to make me give up, wouldn't you?" I put my arm around Victoria's shoulders. "Think whatever you want. We have a date, so if you'll excuse us." In the days that followed, Chloe became obsessed. She sent flowers to my hotel room every day. When I had them sent back, she started sending my favorite pastries. She found out my schedule and engineered chance encounters. She even cornered me in front of Victoria, her eyes red-rimmed, and asked, "Ethan, what do I have to do to make you come back to me?" Through it all, I remained unmoved, putting on a public display of affection with Victoria, acting for all the world like a couple deeply in love. Until one day, I was leaving the hotel and was suddenly surrounded by several large men. Before I could react, a damp cloth was pressed over my mouth and nose. A pungent chemical smell filled my lungs, and after a brief struggle, I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was tied to a chair in what looked like an abandoned warehouse. "You're awake." The male voice was familiar. I looked up to see Julian standing in front of me, a twisted smile on his face. My voice was hoarse. "Julian, what are you doing? You know kidnapping is a felony, right?" "You're insane." Julian screamed. "Insane? Of course I'm insane. Chloe left me for you. How could I not be insane?" He grabbed a fistful of my hair. "Do you have any idea how much I love her? I've loved her since the first time I saw her in high school. I waited all those years, and she finally told me she loved me. She was so good to me. She loved me so much. And then you left, and everything changed." I gritted my teeth against the pain. "You can't force someone to love you." Julian slapped me across the face. "Shut up. This is all your fault. If it weren't for you." The warehouse doors burst open, and Chloe rushed in. "Julian, let him go." Julian turned, a sick smile spreading across his face. "Chloe, you finally came." When Chloe saw me tied to the chair, the color drained from her face. "What did you do to him?" Julian pulled a knife from his pocket. "Nothing. I just want him to disappear forever." Chloe took a step forward. "Julian, don't do anything stupid." Julian laughed maniacally. "He's already ruined my life." He raised the knife, aiming for my chest. "Once he's dead, you'll come back to me." Chloe lunged forward. There was a flash of steel, followed by a spray of blood. My eyes widened in horror. Chloe had thrown herself in front of me. The knife was buried deep in her stomach. Julian screamed and dropped the knife, staring in disbelief at what he'd done. Chloe. Chloe collapsed to her knees, blood quickly soaking her white dress. She struggled to turn to me. Ethan, are you okay? I struggled against my restraints. Chloe, hang on. Julian collapsed to the floor, muttering, I didn't mean to. Chloe, I didn't mean to. The sound of sirens grew louder, and soon police officers were swarming the warehouse, taking Julian into custody. Paramedics rushed in after them, giving Chloe emergency treatment before loading her onto a stretcher. They cut me free, and I followed them to the hospital. I sat on a bench outside the operating room, my hands shaking, my clothes still stained with Chloe's blood. Victoria rushed in, and when she saw the state I was in, she pulled me into a hug. It's over now. I leaned against her shoulder, letting her support me. 5 hours later, the light above the operating room door went out. The surgeon emerged. She's out of danger, but she'll need a long recovery. I let out a long, shuddering breath. Victoria helped me to my feet. Do you want to go see her? I hesitated, then shook my head. No. Victoria looked at me, confused. Why not? My voice was quiet. She's done more than enough for me. If I see her again, it will only make it harder for her to move on. Victoria was silent for a moment, then nodded. Then let's go. Where? Anywhere you want, Victoria said, taking my hand. As long as it makes you happy. 3 months later, Paris. I sat in a cafe on the banks of the Seine, flipping through a travel guide. I had spent the last 3 months traveling through Europe and had decided to stay in Paris for a while. Victoria sat down across from me. Decided on your next destination yet? She asked, handing me an iced coffee. I took the cup, my fingers brushing against hers. I pulled my hand back quickly. Not yet. Victoria smiled. I have a suggestion. Why don't you come stay at my family's estate in the south of France for a while? We have the best vineyards and the most incredible wine cellar. I was about to refuse when my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. Mr. Hayes? A man's voice asked. This is the Sterling family's butler. Mr. Sterling would like to see you. It's about Miss Chloe. I frowned. I have no connection to the Sterling family anymore. The butler's voice was grave. Miss Chloe is ill. Very ill. She keeps calling out your name. My grip on the phone tightened, but I thought she had recovered from her injuries. The butler sighed. It's not a physical ailment, sir. It's depression. Ever since the incident and your subsequent departure, she's locked herself in her room. She refuses to eat or drink. The doctors say, if it continues. He didn't need to finish. For the sake of everything we'd been through, I was silent for a long time before finally letting out a sigh. New York, the Sterling mansion. Standing in front of the familiar door felt surreal. 3 months had passed. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. The butler greeted me respectfully. Mr. Hayes, Mr. Sterling is waiting for you in his study. Chloe's father looked much older than I remembered, his temples completely gray. He sighed heavily. Ethan, Chloe is not doing well. I pressed my lips together. Mr. Sterling, Chloe and I are... Her father cut me off. I know, but that girl genuinely loves you. She's had everything she's ever wanted her entire life with you. For the first time, she truly fell in love, and she didn't even know it. I looked down. It's too late for that now. Mr. Sterling handed me a folder. It's not. This is what Chloe has been doing for the past 3 months. I opened the folder and froze. The first page was a stock transfer agreement. Chloe had signed over her entire stake in Sterling Corporation to me. The second was the deed to a private island. The owner's name was mine. The third, Mr. Sterling's voice was hoarse. After she recovered, she spent 3 months looking for you. When she heard you were in Paris, she booked the first available flight. She collapsed at the airport with a bleeding ulcer. My fingers trembled. The doctor said it was from stress and not eating properly. Her father said, she hasn't had a single decent meal since you left. I closed the folder. Mr. Sterling, what is it you want from me? He looked exhausted. Just go see her, please, as a favor to a desperate father. I was silent for a long time before finally giving a small nod. Chloe's bedroom door was shut, the curtains drawn tight. The room reeked of stale liquor. I gently pushed the door open. Chloe was curled up on her bed, clutching a jacket I had left at her place years ago. Hearing the door open, she spoke without looking up. Get out. I didn't move. She looked up sharply and froze the moment she saw me. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice as if she were afraid of waking from a dream. I walked to the side of her bed. Looking at her gaunt face and bloodshot eyes, I felt an invisible hand squeeze my heart. I asked softly, "How could you let yourself get like this?" Chloe stared at me. Then her hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. "Is it really you?" Her fingers were ice cold, and her grip was strong enough to break bones. "It's me," I said, try to pull my hand away. "I heard you were sick. I came to see how you were doing." But Chloe wouldn't let go. "You're back. Does that mean you forgive me?" I shook my head. "I was never angry with you," she asked urgently. "Then why did you leave? Was it because of Julian?" "I broke up with him." I sighed. "It wasn't because of him. Chloe, our problems were never about anyone else." Her voice trembled. "Then what was it? Tell me. Whatever it is, I'll change. I promise." I looked into her red-rimmed eyes and found I couldn't bring myself to be cruel. "Chloe, we were wrong from the very beginning." She threw herself into my arms. "Then let's start over. Ethan, please just give me one more chance. Just one." For a moment, I hesitated. Then I gently pushed her away. "It's too late." Chloe froze. "What do you mean?" I said calmly. "I'm with someone else now." "You knew that." The room was deathly silent. Chloe stared at me as if I were speaking a foreign language. "You're lying," she said, her voice trembling. "You love me." I shook my head. "I told you. It was always just for the money." A look of pure agony crossed her face. She stumbled backward, knocking over her nightstand. A liquor bottle shattered on the floor. "Chloe." I knelt and began to pick up the pieces of broken glass. "We both need to move on." Chloe suddenly fell to her knees and wrapped her arms around me. "No, Ethan, don't go. Please." Her tears fell on my neck, hot enough to burn. I froze. It was the first time I had ever seen Chloe cry. The proud, untouchable Chloe was sobbing in my arms like a child. Her voice was choked with sobs. "I was wrong. I shouldn't have made you take the fall for Julian. I shouldn't have let you get hurt for me. I shouldn't have chosen him on that rooftop. Ethan, please just give me one more chance." I closed my eyes, then hardened my heart and pushed her away. "It's too late, Chloe." I stood up and gave her one last look. "Take care of yourself." Then I turned and walked away, and I didn't look back. Chloe knelt on the floor, watching until my back disappeared through the doorway. She started to laugh, a broken, hollow sound that dissolved into sobs. "So this is what it felt like to have your heart break." It was dark by the time I left the Sterling mansion. I stood under a streetlight, watching my shadow stretch out long before me. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Victoria. "Is everything taken care of?" I texted back a simple yes. She replied immediately, "So what's next?" I looked up at the night sky and felt a lightness I hadn't felt in years. "Finish my trip around the world." Her reply was instantaneous. "Together." I smiled. "You've been on your best behavior lately, but you're still on probation." She wrote back, "That's fine. I have a lifetime to win you over." I put my phone away and hailed a cab. The neon lights of the city blurred through the window. I looked out at the city I had lived in for 27 years and whispered, "Goodbye." This time it was 4.